Was I just picking my teeth, like on the screen? Could you see that?
I did not see it.
The YouTube stream.
I think you're okay.
It's like sitting here digging in my tooth.
Welcome
to the show. I'm Sean Stiers, along with non-teeth picking Vince DeDario, as we get started on this gorgeous Wednesday outside. Maybe it's been happening for a while, Vince, but I just noticed yesterday leaves turning a tree near my house. They were very red tree. Everything else is still pretty green, but a very red tree near my house. So
there's pockets. There's pockets, we were driving up to Hillsdale the other day, and my mother-in-law, who enjoys the changing of the leaves and all of that, is
don't we all though?
Definitely pointing them all out as we travel down US 12.
Does she know all the trees? Like, can she tell you what kind of trees they are? She is an arborist. I don't know if that's what you call it, but
look at you. No, just like, isn't that pretty? And that kind of stuff. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So nothing very specific.
Are you a guy that like, hey, let's get in the car and go look at the leaves changing? Are you that guy?
No. I wouldn't mind, like, maybe, after I retire, driving to, to New England in mid-October, and, like back to my RV envy and, just like do that, drive like through Massachusetts and up the coast to Maine and Vermont, New Hampshire and all that kind of stuff, like do something like that. It sounds like it's probably not a whole lot different than it is here, except that you've got the ocean, but, out there, but, very, very colorful, very beautiful. I do like to look at it. I do like when we're inside Notre Dame Stadium in mid-October.
Yeah, and you can see the trees.
And all the leaves are, you've got oranges and yellows and reds, and it is that's like one of the best views I think that we get all year when we get that. I will say that.
That's my favorite time to walk through campus. Is in the fall. Like, absolutely the favorite time of year. No doubt about it. That crisp, air and all the fun stuff. Like, that's college to me. Like, winter and spring are for the birds. Fall is where it's at.
Winter for sure. I'm just done with winter. I've been done with winter for a long time. We've had some fairly mild winters the last few years. Like,
very mild.
My first year, in October is going to be my 25th anniversary living here and covering, like, since I moved here to cover Notre Dame. We'll talk more about that at the time. But I think it was like maybe within a week and a half after I moved here, we had because it was like still late October, I'm pretty sure. Okay. We had like a massive snowstorm, one of those like where we got over 2 feet of snow kind of thing.
Like one night.
Yeah. Like overnight, 2 feet of snow kind of thing. We used to get those a heck of a lot more often. We haven't, knock on wood, had quite as many of those the last few years. So, but that was my welcome to South Bend, was 2 feet of snow in like overnight. Fortunately, I had, the 4-wheel drive and the Jeep and all that kind of stuff.
That's right, the old Jeep.
But the old Jeep. I don't know even know if you knew this. I've got a newer Jeep now. I upgraded.
You have a Jeep?
Yeah, about a month or so ago.
Did not know that.
Very nice. It's used, but it's like it's like the newer modern style. It's got all the bells and whistles inside. It's got a hard top. I had the soft top before, which
yes, you did.
Just became way too cumbersome and annoying taking the top on and off and all that stuff. But it's, got all the electronics inside, and it's got like the 4 doors, so it's like a little bit longer. It's not I had the Wrangler, just like I think it was a 95 Wrangler. So you had to jump in the back. Like back in the day when I would get off work, I would tool out to the neck of the woods where you live right now. Our sitters were out there. That's where the kid would be. And so, it's like Jesse and Bailey, ages 5, 6, 4, 5, 6, whatever they were, that, it'd be like summertime and Bailey's in the car seat strapped in the back and the top's off the Jeep and everybody's hair's blowing and we've got music playing, Sugar Ray, coming out the speakers and all that kind of good stuff. Those were the good old days.
Those were the good old days. So you got the new Jeep, you got the ducks. Are you getting any ducks for your Jeep?
No one's hit me up for a duck yet. No, my wife actually gave me a bag of ducks like in case somebody hits me up, but no one's hit me up for a duck. I don't know how those duck encounters actually work.
I don't either. I just see Jeeps with ducks in the windshield. That's all I know.
Yeah.
So, but
Josh says the new Jeeps have a lot of timing issues with the engine. Again, knock on wood, I haven't noticed that yet. Mine is a hybrid, actually, which I didn't even know when I was first looking at it.
You know, they must be paying much better at WSBT than they used to back when I used to work there. That's all I can say.
Again, it's pre-owned.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. I can't afford a pre-owned Jeep. Sean Stiers.
Well, this is also what happens, Vince, when your kids are out.
That's key.
So
that is
money to go around.
That is that's the key statement right there. Yeah,
that's right. That's exactly right. We've got Notre Dame and Purdue kicking off at 3:30 at Notre Dame Stadium this Saturday. Our game day coverage begins with the Game Day Show, the all-new Game Day Show. 11 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. They will be broadcasting at the legendary Linebacker once again. That's where they'll be for all home games. Tim, Jim, Eric, and Tyler at the Linebacker. Reggie Brooks, one of the guests, lined up to join them this week. So stop on by between 11 and 2:30. Check out the Game Day Show as they lead off our coverage for Notre Dame and Purdue this Saturday. You fired up for Purdue? I feel like it's a little harder to get fired up for Purdue after these last games.
I'm fired up to talk about a win. Like, that would be nice. But Purdue specifically, no. I am not fired up about Purdue. I mean, you know, you got a little bit of local flair there. You got Nitro Tuggle. Obviously, he's a Northwood product. I saw him play against Penn at the high school level. They used to Northwood and Penn scrimmage each other every year. So seen him in person a few different times. So you got that going on. And look, their offense is better than it was last year and scares me a little bit when it comes to Notre Dame's defense. And so I will reiterate the fact that I would take the over here. Because
they turned the ball over, though. A lot of turnovers. I think their quarterback's got 4 interceptions so far. So I don't know. But they've got a couple receivers who can catch it as well. And we've said it a few times this week. I mean, any team that's got a halfway decent quarterback and a couple guys who can catch the ball, they're going to put a scare into you, I think, you know. So
the jury is so far out right now as far as the Notre Dame defense is that I just anticipate that every game's going to be a shootout. That's where I'm at.
Okay. I don't know if the jury is out, but
well, something's out.
Father David asks, is that Game Day Show in partnership with IB or just WSBT? That is WSBT. You can find it on the Sports Radio WSBT app or at sportsradiowsbt.com if you would like to, listen to the show. For the road games, when they're in the studio, they're doing the video stream. But because they're out there at the Linebacker, they don't have the YouTube channel.
No excuses.
Firing and that kind of stuff.
No excuses. Get the
phone out. You're gonna have to get on Jim. You're gonna have to get on Jim.
Get it rolling. It's not that hard. But no, the IB crew is fairly busy on Saturdays, so we don't really have an opportunity, unfortunately, to do a pregame show. Really, just in everybody's lot in life right now. So but hey, WSBT's got what you need. So
a lot of cross promotion with these different channels and shows and stuff. Obviously, anyone can watch this show right here on the YouTube channel, the Irish Breakdown YouTube channel, the Sports Radio WSBT channel. Of course, you can listen online to, in either the app or, like I said, sportsradiowsbt.com or the old-fashioned way, just right over the air on 960 AM or 106.1 FM, just like you see over my shoulders there.
Great promotion.
All kinds of ways to listen and watch and everything else. The way to interact on Wednesdays is to be watching on YouTube, though, because that's where you can submit a question for the Notre Dame football mailbag, because that's what Wednesdays are on this show. You can also go to the Irish Breakdown Champions Lounge if you're a premium subscriber, and you can submit questions there. And we have a lot of questions from the Champions Lounge today, but I'll go ahead and start with this one from Mark, longtime viewer of the show on the YouTube platform. Mark, do you think Coach Marcus Freeman is swayed by his experience as a defensive coordinator in his first game with Notre Dame versus Florida State in how he deals and supports Chris Ash?
I think that his experience as a defensive coordinator influences the way that he handles defensive coordinators, not specific to his first game at Notre Dame, because he was a DC, obviously, at Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm.
So he has a ton of experience as a defensive, a ton. He has experience as a defensive coordinator before he came to Notre Dame. So no, I don't think that specific game has anything to do with how he's dealing with Ash, but I do think, I think he sits back and is like, okay, well, if I was the defensive coordinator in this situation, how would I want the head coach to handle things with me? I'm sure that goes through his mind. I'm absolutely sure of it, because I think that way when I'm coaching, thinking about when I used to be a player or
Sure.
whatever the case may be, right? So, or when I was a head coach, thinking about how to deal with assistant coaches, because I used to be an assistant coach. So all of those things go part and parcel with how Marcus Freeman handles things. I don't think it's specific to the Florida State game, though.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at even that season, because I went back and I wish I would have brought that notebook in with me. I could have given you a few different numbers, but there were some games, not just the Florida State game that year, where like Notre Dame still won all but one game that season. Obviously, well, in the regular season anyway. The Cincinnati game, obviously, but there were some games where some teams put up some big yards, not necessarily a whole lot of points. They still scored some points, but there were some peaks and valleys for Marcus Freeman in that one and only season that he had as defensive coordinator. So I'm sure maybe some of that, he remembers that probably even better than the rest of it. So I'm sure that some of that does influence how he's handling this with Chris Ash. But the other side of that is what also has to be influencing how he's handling it is, look, we just had an elite defense for 2 years and we just played in a national championship game. So how patient is he going to be?
Absolutely.
Like how long is he going to wait before he, decides, hey, we've got to do something different? I mean, listening to his comments on Monday, I know a lot of people weren't necessarily completely satisfied with everything, or in some cases anything that he said on Monday. But at the same time, if you did listen, and especially I think it helped to go back and kind of read some of the transcript, I mean, they're actively working on, like he's not willing to just stand pat and say, okay, Chris, do what you're going to do. They're very actively working on ways to make this defense better. He knows it has to get better. Like that is not lost on Marcus Freeman.
I hope so. We played a lot of clips from the press conference on Monday and watched it, all of those things, right? And there were people out there that were at the press conference that gleaned a lot more from it than I did, reading, quote unquote, reading between the lines. That I didn't necessarily get from what he was saying, but I like what they're coming up with, so I hope it's true. Like, I don't know. It felt like a lot of coach speak to me, but people are like, listen to what he's saying. He's saying he's going to take over the defense, or he's going to have a bigger role over on the defensive side. He's not afraid to step in on the defense.
He did say he would. He didn't definitively say but he will.
He also said he would step in on offense if need be, or he would step in on special teams.
Yeah.
So it's like, I feel like he's just saying he would step in if needed wherever, not specific to the defense this year. But hey, there's smarter people than I that were listening to that press conference, apparently, and they got different things from it. So we'll see.
But again, there's a lot of inference there. I think you do have to read between the lines a little bit. Thank you very much for the super chat, Anthony. He says, thanks for the show, gentlemen. I always appreciate you dropping one of those in. Okay, so speaking of things said in the press conference, our first question that comes from the Champions Lounge is from Christopher Crosby, and he's asking about that. He says, this is directed at me. He says, you asked a question about Chris Ash running the Notre Dame defense to Coach Freeman at his press conference. What do you think about his answer? Outside of it still being a 4-2-5 base, it sure doesn't look like the Notre Dame defense that we had become accustomed to. And that was essentially kind of how I posed the question to Marcus Freeman. That's not what we've seen, even though Chris Ash said he's running the Notre Dame defense. So for a refresher, I'll just go ahead and play the cut here real quick, and then I'll kind of respond to that. And obviously Vince can respond as well.
The Notre Dame defense that I hear you say look different. It's the execution of what they're being asked to do, right? The overall output, I guess, is what you see that's different. It's not the structure of the defense. It's the execution of what we're asking our guys to do. And so there's new players, right? There's some new players that we got to get them to the point that they can execute what we're asking them to do. But it's not, I don't think you're seeing a big change in terms of the structure of the tactical aspect of how we're playing defense. And so what we got to do is again, evaluate what we're asking our guys to do. And then say, okay, if they can't do what we're asking them to do, either we got to change it or we got to address it in practice in a way that they can execute exactly what we're asking them to do at the level we're asking them to do it. And so that's what we got to do. And whose defense is our defense? It's our Notre Dame football. It's my head coach, right? That's no one person's fault. It's ours.
Okay, so there's Marcus Freeman. There's the answer that he had to the question, whose defense is it? Because, again, the way I asked it was Chris Ash all offseason after he was hired said that he's not running the Notre Dame he's not running his defense. He's running the Notre Dame defense. But the defense that we've seen so far through 2 games looks nothing like what we've been, accustomed to seeing. And I do want to say that I'm really shocked at how this question has taken a life of its own, really, over the last couple days. And, like a lot of people have said, things to me about it. I didn't ask this question to get pats on the back. I didn't ask it to zing Marcus Freeman. I didn't even ask it to zing Chris Ash. I asked it looking for, an actual answer to this question, because, again, what we heard from Chris Ash after he took the job was, I'm not running my defense. I'm running the Notre Dame defense. Well, after watching the Miami game, we all saw with our own eyes that the way they performed was not the Notre Dame defense that we've become accustomed to seeing the last couple of years, which is an elite, in-your-face, attacking defense. The defense that we saw at Miami was much more of a passive, more like read and react, kind of stuff. Watching, waiting to get punched and then counter punching if you can afterwards. And so, of course, we talked about that for 2 weeks. And I know that we posed the question on the show, whose defense are they running? Because, again, what we saw in Miami was not the Notre Dame defense that we've seen, even though Ash said that. So, and then it got worse against Texas A&M and the whole, Notre Dame's defense. It's not my defense. That really just kind of started to ring in my head, all day Sunday and Monday morning after watching that Saturday night in the loss to Texas A&M. So that's kind of my preamble to that. As for Freeman's answer, we just played it again, obviously. He's saying it's Notre Dame's defense. They're just not playing it very well. Like if you boil all those words down, that's what he said. It's Notre Dame's defense. We're not playing it well. It's not the structure of the defense. It's how we're executing the defense. We have to evaluate what we're asking our guys to do. And basically, if they can't do what we want them to do, we've either got to change that or figure out how to coach them up better. So his answer was it's Notre Dame defense. I don't mind his answer if that's his answer. I didn't expect him to throw Chris Ash under the bus, I don't expect him to dump on any of his coaches or players publicly. He says it's the Notre Dame defense, so that's his answer. Like he's saying structurally, from a literal perspective, it's the Notre Dame defense. I think that we can all see, though, that you've got a different philosophical approach to carrying out that defense, though. And so that's kind of still where the biggest concern / question is. What do you think, Vince?
So I'm going to do my best reading between the lines, listening to him and answer that question. And he's talked about execution and, we have to rethink what we're asking these guys to do. Well, if you want to take a positive spin on that, you look at it and you say, okay, well, we're asking them to run off man. We're asking them to run more zone. We're asking them to do different things than we asked them to do last year. And they're not as successful. And we have to rethink because they're not executing what we're asking them to do. So we got to change. Like, that's the glass half full to me part of the answer.
Right.
If that's
he's
what he's
acknowledging that they have to change.
Yes.
Right. That they can't keep beating
Right.
their heads against the wall and expecting a different result.
Correct. So that's where I have hope, I guess, is the best way to put it, is that he sees there's a problem. He sees they're not executing what they're asking them to do because they're asking them to do the wrong things. The glass half empty response would be, well, they're not executing what we're asking them to do. So we've got to coach them better so that they can execute exactly what we're asking them to do.
Right.
That would be the glass half empty response.
That's the biggest concern. We're going to keep asking them to do that until they get it right.
So which one is it? That's the gnawing question for me. Are you going to continue to ask them to do these things that they don't do well, or are you going to change and ask them to do things then that they do
what
well?
You did exceptionally well for 2 years.
Yes, exactly correct. So that's my biggest question listening to that back. It was like I had an epiphany while listening to it.
Right. And look, it was probably my biggest. I don't want to like completely, revisionist history this whole thing, but it was a concern. At least a lot of the personnel is the same, and even guys who weren't starters were still, most of them were playing to some extent, outside of like Tay Johnson and Carson Hobbs and a few others. But again, you've got 4 of your top linebackers back from last year who were all playing. You've got 3 of 4 starters from the national championship game in the secondary who were all playing. The biggest questions are like on the defensive line, but even there, outside of the interior guys, you had guys who were all playing and contributing last year. But again, you can talk about, well, the playbook is the same and everything else. One big philosophical difference is Al Golden could disguise a blitz, and he would bring a blitz on a quarterback where the quarterback many times, most of the time, was not expecting it. Whereas Chris Ash, obviously, and Marcus Freeman, through him, have talked about wanting to get pressure with 4. Well, it's one thing to want to get pressure with 4, but now you've got 2 samples that say you can't get pressure with 4, and you can't do it with generic blitzes, which Chris Ash has done much more of than Al Golden. Like Golden's blitzes were much more exotic than anything that we've seen from Chris Ash so far. So you're not getting the pressure with 4. Again, as the level of competition plays, maybe that changes to some extent, but you've just flat out got to find ways to get more pressure on the quarterback, because you are not doing anything right now to disrupt his rhythm. Marcel Reed stood in the pocket for days at times the other night and, could have picked Notre Dame apart if he was a little bit more accurate than the 46%. But as it turned out, he didn't need to, because every pass play he hit went for at least 20 yards, it seemed like. That's about what the average was.
Which is just there are not enough words to describe how bad that is, and just what easy access throws that he had. He was still right around 50% completion percentage, and he was throwing to wide open guys.
Yeah,
I mean, he missed some wide open throws that would have made the score worse than it was.
Right.
I mean,
Notre Dame, could have had a couple more interceptions that their secondary.
Oh.
That's even worse is the fact that when you did get a chance, you didn't hold on to some easy opportunities, to make a couple picks. And
you got to make those plays.
Yeah. And like Christian Gray, and I realize, people, knock his coverage and stuff, but like on the 86-yard touchdown pass, it's like, did you literally almost all Christian Gray had to do was stand there and open his arms and just give Craver a hug, and he would have brought him down.
Yes.
He tried to just kind of lower his shoulder and give him this little bump. Like, you're not going to bring anybody down that way. Who's teaching tackling like that? Like, Christian Gray's a better tackler than that. What happened in the course of 9 months?
I know. All they had to do was push him out of bounds.
Yeah.
Like, he was right there. Just push him out of bounds. You don't want to hit him? Cool. Push him. Take after a punter or a kicker. Just push him out of bounds. That was just a terrible effort on all of their parts. Who had an opportunity to take him down? Just a terrible effort and terrible recognition on the route and all of those different things. And so They made a mediocre to good quarterback look great.
Right.
That's what they did.
Yeah.
And
he was not an exceptional quarterback. And I don't want to take anything away from him because they won the game.
Yeah,
obviously.
for sure.
He made plays when he had to make plays, So,
but you know what?
Yeah, he is not. I don't think he's going to be an all SEC
no
quarterback by any means.
He's probably not going to play in the NFL either. So the Brown kid from Purdue, he can sling it around too, and he's going to be more accurate than the Texas A&M kid was. So look out. Like, if you don't get some stuff fixed, Purdue's going to go up and down the field on you too.
Yes. That's what should scare everybody, I think, right now. You can't go through life needing to score 40 points to win a game. Like, that's
exactly.
It's not sustainable. It's already not been sustainable. Because, look, if you would have told me going into the season with a first-time starting quarterback, they were going to average more than 30 points through their first 2 games, they'd be 2-0.
100%.
I think all of us would have. If you had said Notre Dame is going to average more than 30 points in their first 2 games, lock for 2-0. But that hasn't even obviously come close.
Well, it's been close.
But
yeah. I just
mean, it is 2 losses by 4 points to be
correct. It's 2 losses to 2 top 15 teams by 4 points. So that's why they're still ranked and haven't won a game.
Yeah.
So, they have to take care of business every single week, obviously, and they're going to focus on this week and all of those things. But they're still a good football team, but they're nowhere near where they should be. I mean, we can all agree on that. They're nowhere near where they should be.
Exactly. I'm going to take care of business right now because we're already a little bit behind. Let's take this break. We'll come back. More Notre Dame football questions in the Mailbag show. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. It's Budweiser's Weekday Sportsbeat with IrishBreakdown.com. I'm Sean Stiers, along with the one and only Vince DeDario. Ladies and gentlemen.
Wow, that's quite the intro.
Do what I can. I'm Vince's hype man.
It's the reason we've been friends for over 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. It's Mailbag Day. We're answering listener Notre Dame football questions submitted either in the Irish Breakdown Champions Lounge or in the chat. And I forgot what the word for this thing was. The chat in the YouTube stream. Chuck Konopinski, I know that guy. He said I've got the wrong hat on today. Got my old school Red Sox hat on today.
Is it possible to be a Red Sox and a Royals fan at the same time? I'm just asking for a friend.
Some people have to have multiple teams. Like when your team goes 3 decades with like losing 100 games on the regular, like your mind wanders sometimes.
Your mind wanders. Oh, you were looking for the bandwagon. I get it.
Yeah,
I understand. Listen. I got
also I grew up I never really had that much Royal stuff growing up.
Okay.
Because I just never really liked the look of a lot of the stuff, So I won't say I had more Red Sox stuff because 70s and 80s they didn't sell that much stuff anyway, but
true.
Red Sox stuff definitely looks cooler. The Red Sox thing kind of came about because they both, like in the 70s, the Royals would always lose to the freaking Yankees in the playoffs. In the ALCS.
Okay.
And so it's kind of like the enemy of your enemy kind of thing. And so, kind of pick up the Sox and kind of always I won't say that they're like my favorite team. They were. I was definitely because even you probably remember this goes back to 2003 is before I met you, but Ortiz and then the 2004 run. Yep. We were doing when we were doing the old show when the Red Sox made it to the World Series and they went down to St. Louis. We drove down, me and another guy from the radio station, and we very foolishly thought that a couple $100 might get us a ticket to get in, but that was not happening. And so we found actually a fence out in the outfield and kind of peeked through the fence for about an inning. Then it was like, all right, there's nobody on the streets. Let's just go find a sports bar. We'll watch the rest of the game. And then we did our show from that bar the next morning. So, yeah. All right, let's do some Notre Dame football questions. From Bergier 23. How did Marcus Freeman not see this coming, and why do we have to wait until season with him to coach better?
I mean, he's not a soothsayer. He's not going to be able to predict everything that happens in a season. Now, I would have hoped that he would see the changes being made on the defense and be like, I don't know that that's a great idea. You would hope that would have been the case. I know he's been very hands-off of the defense when Al Golden was there, and he probably continued to be hands-off because he figured he brought in a guy who's got experience and he doesn't need to micromanage him, and probably didn't. And probably he's regretting that at this point. You know what I mean? So, he brought in a coach with head coaching experience who would obviously, he's been around the block a little bit. I think that he thought by getting that kind of guy, he wasn't going to have to look over his shoulder all the time. But look, if you would have told Marcus Freeman, hey, man,
you got to see something. You got to see something out there,
right? You're going to be 0-2, brother. You're going to be 0-2. So just. Keep doing what you're doing, but you're going to be 0-2. Yeah, he would have made some changes, I would hope, but I'm sure he didn't see 0-2 staring him in the face either.
Yeah. Kind of to the same point, Indy Sailor says the defense looked good going against a Notre Dame offense that was not yet set as a result of the quarterback competition. Did that competition hide the flaws in the defense? And I've been kind of thinking about this because, we talked that, with the quarterback competition going on and all that kind of stuff. It's like, well, they're going up against Notre Dame's secondary. Of course, it's going to be hard for everybody. Of course, they're going to throw some interceptions, but it's like watching what we've seen the first couple of games, how did that secondary come up with any interceptions against these guys? It's pretty bizarre.
Well, because we were talking about the fact, well, the reason one of the reasons the quarterback competition was so close is because they're playing against Notre Dame's defense and, the DBs.
It's great Notre Dame defense.
Oh, yeah. And all these interceptions that they're getting and blah, 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 blah. Like, they've had opportunities to make interceptions. They just haven't, Sean. Like, I think that's the bigger issue. It's like, you got to catch the ball.
Yep. Exactly. Let's see. What will the next question? Oh, Bergier 23. Snead at edge. He is non-existent at linebacker.
I've said for a long time that Snead needs to be a situational linebacker. I think that's where he thrives. That's where he's good. So that's what I think he should be. And I think that Kingston Viliamuasa should be playing that position more on the regular.
I do too.
So
I do too. Like
and you and I said that going into the season.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure we said it last week as well. I think that there are situational places for Snead. Maybe the edge is a place for him, because they obviously have to figure something out in terms of how you're going to rush the passer. And he's got the kind of body who can do it, although KVA does as well. But again, like KVA is not getting home either with the opportunities that he has.
Yeah,
but
agreed.
At this point, I think we said it. Like, it feels like it needs to be Drake Bowen and Kingston Viliamuasa getting the majority of the linebacker reps. Like, that's what it feels like to me. Right.
Agreed. Yeah. People are like, oh, you gotta bench Drake Bowen. He's terrible. Blah, blah. No, he's not. He's still very, 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 very good. And he should still be getting the most reps at linebacker. That should not change. He played pretty darn well, actually. So.
The 80s guy says, hypothetical, we lose to Purdue and Freeman still doesn't step in to help Ash and the defense. Then what?
Well, then you probably lose the next game and probably lose the next game. And this is 2016 all over again.
Yeah, nothing's going to happen. It's going to be a long year.
Like, nothing, if you're expecting like Pete Bavacqua to step in and be like, Freeman, you're fired because 6 months ago you were in the national championship game, but now you suck. Like, that's not going to happen. And they're not going to fire an assistant coach in the middle of the year in his first year coaching with Notre Dame. It's not going to happen either. So, if they lose to Purdue and Freeman doesn't step in, then they're just not going to be a good football team this year. And it's going to be a very long year for all of us.
I mean, after the last two games, I would be shocked if Freeman is not stepping in and doing more this week.
Me too. Would be 100%.
Because now your season's on the brink. Everyone knows. Everyone's still talking big picture, and that's what Marcus Freeman has to get his team not to think about is big picture. They've got to be thinking about this week, every play against Purdue, because if they're not on point, Purdue is a better team than they were last year, and they have every right to think that from an offensive standpoint, they can come pretty close to doing what Texas A&M did last week. Now, I will say, that's from a skill position standpoint. I will say, if we don't see a Notre Dame offensive and defensive line that looks, like much more physically superior to Purdue this week, I realize they're in the Big Ten and all that kind of stuff, but like this game specifically now, if Notre Dame is not clearly the better team on both sides of the line of scrimmage down in the trenches, then again, like the issues go beyond anything. I expect to see a Notre Dame team that is much more physically assertive just because of the fact you're not facing the Miami bodies that they had. You're not facing the Texas A&M SEC bodies.
Right.
Yeah, I expect it to look a lot different down in the trenches this week.
Completely agree. The competition that you play makes a big difference for sure.
Yeah, exactly. We've said it before that you might not actually be better, but based on the level of competition you're playing, you expect it to look better.
Correct.
I don't expect Notre Dame to score more than, over 60 points again against Purdue. Maybe they will.
I don't either.
I don't know, but that's not what I expect. They are, they've got a better head coach, and they are at least pointing in the right direction right now. Okay, we'll get one more question before this next break. from ND Noah. I will never listen to the coaches nor media again about our team. If we have all this talent, then the issues will be fixed. If not, the coaches lied to us, and Freeman isn't the man we think he is.
Okay.
About that.
First of all, you're currently listening to the media, so there's kind of an issue right there. And then second of all, listen, we all think that Marcus Freeman needs to step up and make some changes. We all think that. But he also does have a bit of a track record. He did do some pretty great things last year, and everybody was praising him. So maybe the truth is someplace in the middle, right? But you got it. You can't call for his firing after 2 games. I'm sorry. Like, let's slow the roll just a little bit.
And again, let's not forget, like, the way the defense has looked has completely overshadowed the fact that you have a first-time starting redshirt freshman quarterback who has led 2 late drives that have tied the game, tied or taken the lead in both cases in the fourth quarter in both games against good teams. And they've scored a total of 64 points in 2 games with a first-time starting quarterback.
Against top 15 teams.
Right, right. Defense absolutely has to get better, but, like, it's not just a team without talent because the defense is struggling right now. I mean, like, if you watch this team last year, you know that Leonard Moore is talented. You know that a lot of these, that Drake Bowen is talented. Yeah. There's a lot of talent still playing out there. They're just not playing at the level they need to be playing at right now. And that's obviously the issue that they've got to get.
And there's a point that Brian made when we were recording upon further review about Marcus Freeman course correcting and overcorrecting. And he is of the he's of the thought process, and he has more, inside knowledge than I do, that, there was a lot of injuries last year, and they went hard at practice last year, a lot. And so he thinks there's a chance that maybe he overcorrected, and they're going very easy
what they were doing
at practice, and therefore they're not as aggressive as they were last year. They're not as attacking as they were last year. You know what I mean? So I could see some validity to that theory if that is the case, because you don't want to have those kinds of injuries again. Life would have been a lot easier for Marcus Freeman last year if he didn't have to deal with all those injuries, right?
Yeah.
And so it's time to ratchet it back up. If that's the case, it's time to, turn up the level, at practice. But the reality is we don't see practice, so we don't know.
That's right. That's exactly right. And that's, works both ways, I guess, as we're trying to evaluate this and as they come out of camp and we see them all for the first time. Take our final break of this hour and then back with some more mailbag questions, talking Notre Dame football right after this. Winding down the first hour of Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com with Vince DeDario, Sean Stiers. We are answering predominantly Notre Dame football questions, but Andre asks in the YouTube chat if I am still doing Notre Dame women's basketball games this season. Yes, indeed, I am. He says, may I see you either 1-4-26 and or Wake Forest in February? Yes, and yes, you may, as long as you are there. That's the only way.
Permission granted.
Yes. Exactly. Andre had another football question as well. I want to see the offense look the same, but better O-line play on defense. Play strong defense. Just do your job better. More man-to-man. Play physical, fast, and free. Thoughts on that, Vince?
That pretty much solves all the problems. I mean, show over. We're done.
Yeah. Nailed it.
That's a national championship contending team right there.
Yeah. And based on what we saw last year, it's why, like to the point before about not listening to the media and all this different kind of stuff. It's why we thought they were, still going to be as good as they were last year, because you had so much back, and those are all the things that they're built on and all that kind of good stuff. Scott L. Esquire got in late in the chat. He said, my question is played like a champion on the board. Could have been the whole show. We haven't got to it yet, Scott. So we've got a lot of questions still stacked up. So if you're coming into the YouTube chat, you can get your mailbag questions in. We still have a lot that we haven't gotten to yet from the Champions Lounge. So we'll be doing those as well. And we've still got a few minutes this hour.
Stiers Jr. is trying to stir the pot a little bit in the chat.
Stiers. Oh, Jesse jumping in. How can the offensive line be bad when you score 40?
Well, because 7 of those weren't scored by the offensive line.
Yes, you really scored 34.
But other than that, look, the offensive line was not great, and I know Jesse knows this. He's being sarcastic.
It was better, but it still wasn't great.
Correct. I would challenge you to go watch some of this film and tell me that the offensive line played well. They did not play well. They played okay. They did not play well. There was some flat out whiffs. So not good.
I mean, there were some blocks made, but there were too many guys I think one of the bigger issues was just like the number of times that Texas A&M guys would be unblocked because no one was paying attention to them for whatever reason.
Correct.
That's the biggest. You can't block anybody if you're not even trying to block them. You're not even looking at them. Beefeater says, I think that, actually it was a different Beefeater question. The chat keep them moving.
Yeah, it is.
Where did it go? It was the one that he was talking about, John Bryce. He said during the apparently, it was Scott. I'm sorry. He said Bryce said that during this 3-game losing streak, which obviously goes back to the national championship game, Notre Dame's given up 20 tackles for loss, but only has 9 themselves. And I can see that.
Good. That's not good.
Because again, you're also talking about 2 top 10 teams and another one now that is in the top 10. So you're talking about a higher level of competition.
Yeah, one of those games was the national championship. So
correct.
That. Yes, that's
we all know how that
stat. Yes, John is absolutely correct. No, those stats are not wrong, but there's some pretty high competition as well. So, and the fact that Jesse says that was only 15% sarcasm is about 75% too low of a number.
Be careful. He'll get mad at you.
At me?
Don't correct him.
Oh, that's great.
Let me see. O'Doyle Rules asks, did the USC blueprint from last year break the defense?
That game was not the last. I mean, they played pretty good defense in the playoffs. So I would say no. The USC blueprint did not break the defense.
I don't think that the main USC blueprint was just throw to some big receivers and in the second half anyway, pick on Christian Gray, and they tried to keep doing some things, but Notre Dame, including Gray, came up with a couple of timely interceptions that they returned for touchdowns at the end of the game. So I don't think it's necessarily It's not a blueprint at all because, as you said, ask Indiana, Georgia, and Penn State if they duplicated that blueprint. And even Ohio State, yeah, they threw the ball, but they also had, Emeka Buka is like the front runner right now for Rookie of the Year in the NFC, the way he's played the first 2 games for Tampa Bay. And then, of course, you've got Jeremiah Smith, who's only a sophomore. It's an NFL wide receiver machine down there at Ohio State. So I think that it just has, again, much more to do with the, like the level of competition that you're playing as much as anything and the competency of some quarterbacks. But in these 2 games in this season specifically, it has much more to do with just the way the defense is playing than anything.
Completely agree with you. Yeah. I really don't have a whole lot to add there. I completely agree with where you're coming from. Yep.
All right, we will keep the mailbag rolling in hour number 2 of the show because we've got a lot more questions coming in. So if you're jumping into the YouTube chat, fire your questions into the mailbag. We've got more on the Champions Lounge that we'll get to, and that's all coming up in the second hour of Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Welcome to hour number 2. Come on, little camper. You can't be that tired. Let's go. Come on,
little camper.
Little Vim.
It's funny you should mention that. I'm going camping tomorrow.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Where are you camping?
It's a camp up in Michigan. I'm chaperoning the 5th grade camping trip.
Oh boy.
The whole grade is going, and I will have a cabin of 10 5th grade boys to deal with, including.
So it's an overnight thing?
It is. Yeah, tomorrow to
for
Friday.
School?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Really? Never heard of such a thing.
So I was voluntold that I get to go.
Lucky you.
I know. And I'm already tired just thinking about it. That's the deal. So,
yes.
It'll be fun.
Exactly.
It's gonna be hot.
Well, of course, we do usually do rapid fire at this time in the second hour, but we've got so many questions that we haven't even been able to address yet from the Champions Lounge and from the YouTube chat as well that we're going to just extend the mailbag and keep right on trucking through here. Stoney with a question of the Champions Lounge, an offensive question.
Ooh.
What are your thoughts on Notre Dame running some 10 personnel? Not usually a big fan of it, but it seems to me that they're not doing the best job of getting the receivers even snaps. I'm more meaning Greathouse should have more. The others have plenty. So what are your thoughts on that? I guess, it's really kind of two questions. He's saying he wants to see Greathouse more, so you don't necessarily have to run 10 personnel to do that. I'll preface it with this. Here's the snap count so far for the receivers. Faison leads the pack with 122. Fields has 114. Greathouse is third with 71. So he's got the third most snaps right now. And Will Pauling is next at 43. So those are the top 4 snap guys in terms of the receivers. What do you think about this?
I think that if you go to 10 personnel, you're taking away one of your weapons, and Eli Raritan, which I would not do. Now you don't have to have him, in line. You can have him split out and do things of that nature, and that's fine because they do that anyway. So I would not go 10 personnel. I would not. There's no way you can convince me having Eli Raritan off the field is a good idea. So I want him on the field.
Well, and look, when you look at targets and receptions and snap count, the 2 guys who are playing the most are the guys who CJ Carr is throwing to the most. The top 3 guys right now are Faison, Fields, and Eli Raritan. Just in terms of where the balls are going. It does feel like, because, with Malachi Fields and with Jordan Faison, those are the 2 outside guys right now.
Correct.
And that is, and then, when you look at where Eli Raritan has the most of his production, it has been on the outside as well. They are working the perimeter. I don't know if it's specific game plan where Carr likes it the most, where they're, look at the interception last week. Now, again, it's a little bit funky because he kind of
on the move,
starts and stops. He's on the move, but it's a, late throw over the middle that's a little bit off, bounces off his target and ends up being intercepted in the middle of the field. But it definitely feels like, if nothing else, one, CJ Carr really likes throwing to Malachi Fields, and you can see why with the kind of size and skills that he has. And, he throws to Jordan Faison quite a bit as well. But again, those are the outside guys, and it feels like they're working the perimeter much more than anything right now.
Well, and they've run some 2-back sets as well, and they've got guys on the move. And when they do that, guess who leaves the field? The slot. That's who's not going to be on the field, and you're still going to have the outside receivers. And I agree, they run a lot of stuff that is more towards the outside. Carr isn't averse to throwing in the middle of the field. I mean, his throws to Eli Raritan have been in the middle of the field. He throws to the middle of the field.
The two biggest ones have been outside, though. They've both been outside the hashes, I believe. The big one at Miami, and then the longer one last week. I thought, unless I'm misremembering that, I thought that was more like hashing out.
Yeah, he's outside more often, and that's because he's a first-year starting quarterback, and you don't want him throwing over the middle of the field. That's bottom line. He's not averse to doing it. It's just that's not the way the plays are being called. So the ball's not going to go to the middle of the field as much. It'll get more open as the look, we saw a step up in production from CJ Carr and how much they trusted him from week 1 to week 2. Wait till you see what happens in week 3 when you're not going up against as good of a defense.
Yeah. And again, you're averaging, 32 points a game right now. So it's nitpicking a little bit, especially with a first-time quarterback against 2 pretty good teams. I think, like Miami, the way they beat USF around, I think we can safely say they're a really good team, at least right now they are anyway. So, and, Notre Dame played a very close road game with them, obviously. So I think we're going to see this offense continue to evolve. They definitely need to get Jaden Greathouse more involved in the offense, but I don't think you want to force the issue either. I think it has to kind of come naturally as it goes along. I mean, they ran the ball more last week. I think that was a good sign.
People in the chat are talking about force feeding the ball. I mean, they force fed the ball to the 2 running backs. They had success, obviously, but they didn't have the kind of success that you think they had because, yes, they ran the ball more, but they were running 2-3 yards a carry. Like the numbers aren't great from running the ball, but you're getting the ball in the hands of 2 of your playmakers. And I have no problem with that. It just wasn't super successful, I guess, is the point that I'm making. And, people are being a little nitpicky in the passing game right now. Somebody on the internet showed a play where Pauling was wide open on the backside for a touchdown because of a coverage breakdown. That play in particular, they're like, oh my God, how does CJ Carr miss the wide open guy? Because he's reading half the field and it's not the half that was wide open. He's told to read the right side of the field, made the correct read, made a great throw, had a completion,
this might shock you, but NFL quarterbacks do that too.
Right.
Like it's not just your quarterback who doesn't see a wide open guy. Like it happens all the time. I won't say on every play, but it happens all the time where there's a wide open guy and the quarterback doesn't. Even at the NFL level, even the elite ones don't always see the wide open receiver.
CJ Carr has made more downfield plays in the passing game and more high level passes in the first 2 games of his Notre Dame career than we've seen in like 15 years at Notre Dame from the quarterback. Yeah. I mean, and that's a fact. That's not an opinion. That's not rose-colored glasses. That's a absolute fact, and that's been since probably Jimmy Clausen, to be honest. So, I mean, it's been a while.
Like Vince was just saying he throws to the middle of the field, but like Time Cone is saying, seems to me like CJ doesn't throw in the center third of the field. Am I wrong? I don't think you're wrong. I think that, again, like going back to interceptions during training camp and during this quarterback competition, I think that's like, I'm not saying they're telling him to never throw to the middle of the field, but I like that's where obviously the most congestion is, where you can get into some trouble, right? Yes. Where you can make especially as a younger quarterback. Right. So again, I do feel like they are limiting that at the very least right now. That is, like maybe that comes later as the comfort level, continues to rise and all those different kind of things. I do feel like they're limiting him, throwing into the middle of the field as much as possible right now.
It's going to be a progression, right? Remember the first game, Sean, and there was all the screen passes and the RPOs and all. Like, how many screen passes were there on Saturday? I honestly don't remember one, to be perfectly honest with you. So, like, they're slowly progressing him along, and he's going to get more and more responsibility and all of those things. So he goes to the middle of the field, but not as much as he will as the season progresses.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Here's the book that played like a champion. Goodness. That's been talking about a little bit. He's been champing at the bit, just waiting for us to answer this one. Okay. He says, I teach my sons that if you fail the test, life will keep giving you the same lessons again and again. What, if anything, is the test Marcus Freeman continues to fail again and again? Options include, but are not limited to: A, the need to follow an impeccable process to hire the best coordinator candidate. For example, both the Parker and Ash hires happened briskly when the search should have deepened after the initial targets didn't work out. B, knowing what is going on with his team, such as the state of the wide receiver room under Stuckey and the offensive line room under Rudolph, that prompted the speedy exit of several linemen after last year's magical season, etc.
Okay.
You'll have your chance. You'll have your chance. C, understanding or clearly seeing the strengths and weaknesses of the team. D, getting the team mentally ready to play well when the media is pumping up how good Notre Dame is. Or E, other. Okay, Vince, respond.
Man. Well, it's definitely not B, because people didn't leave the room because Rudolph, that's not why they left. They left because they weren't going to start. Because there's guys that are more talented than them. It doesn't matter who the offensive line coach is.
The Stuckey thing are two completely different things.
So different.
You shouldn't lump those.
Yeah, so different. So I'm throwing out. Yeah, I'm throwing out B just because of that.
Yeah.
A. Let's see here. I have not been overly impressed with the hires and the way in which those hires have gone down.
With the exception of Denbrock and probably Sider.
Sure. Yeah, Sider was obviously great. I'm thinking more coordinators. Denbrock was obviously easy. He was the first choice. They threw him a lot of money. He said yes. Like that. I mean, you or I could have done that one. I would say the process yeah, correct. The process for the other ones they've been interesting. They've been very public, which I'm not a fan of either. And they've blown up in their face, which has not worked out to, you know what I mean? Like it hasn't, just the way that it's gone has not been great. So I guess I would say A is a bit of an issue, because you want to be able to hire the right people so that you can go do your job and think that they're going to do theirs. And so A would be the first one for me for sure. I think he understands the strengths and weaknesses of his team.
See, I honestly think that's, I don't know if it's maybe strengths and weaknesses, but there have obviously been blind spots in.
I think that starts with coaching, though. I think his blind spot is to the coach who doesn't know the strengths and weaknesses.
Deferring to his assistants too much, maybe?
Yes, which goes back to the hiring process, because you got the wrong guys in the chair.
Right.
Like that's the bigger issue for me. And I think his blind spot is to the coaches. That's where I'm at. I think his blind spot is to the coaches, and he trusts them to do their job, and they're not doing it.
I can see that, because but see, did you understand the strengths and weaknesses of your team completely against Northern Illinois last year? Because remember, the NIU head coach saying publicly that he talked to Marcus Freeman afterwards and was like, hey, we saw some things, and this is why we were able to gash you so much with the run, as an example. Like something simple like that, they were able to hit Notre Dame with some stuff, and it took a coach who was, being really generous by saying afterwards, this was your weak spot, and this is where we attacked you. And if you did that guy get an Orange Bowl ring on the back end of that deal, after Notre Dame's college football playoff run? So I see what you're saying. And I think maybe those two things
go together,
tie together for sure.
Because I don't think Marcus Freeman is sitting in the room while Al Golden, in that particular case, Al Golden was putting together the game plan.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah, I think those two things go together for sure.
Yeah.
And the last one, getting the team mentally ready when the media is pumping up how good the team. Where do you think the media gets their information? They get it from inside the Goog, whether that's a coach or a personnel person. You know what I mean? Like, they're getting their information from the coaching staff. So I don't think that's it either. So I think it was a combination of A and C. What do you think? I think that's a good answer to that one.
Yeah, I think so. A is basically, being on point with the hires, and C is understanding the strengths and weaknesses of the team. So yeah, I think that's he definitely entrusts his coaches quite a bit. Again, I think that's obviously part of why he wanted a guy with head coaching experience when he made this defensive coordinator hire. Now, there are a lot of guys you could go out and probably have found who could be a defensive coordinator who also had head coaching experience, but it did seem like he kind of jumped on one pretty early. And, there are a lot of arguments to be made. How much better off are you with that guy versus a guy who is in-house, who maybe hasn't been a coordinator before, but seems like he was really on point with how he's recruiting and how he's coaching your guys in the secondary. Like, how much worse off would you have been? Like a guy who has run the defense for like been involved in the defense for the last 3 years in what was successful.
The question is he still as involved in the defense as he was last year?
Exactly.
I think that's a legitimate question right
That's
now.
a big question. And if he's not, is he going to be? Because I think that he absolutely has to be at this point.
Yep.
Because otherwise, all this praise that we've been heaping on Mike Mickens for the last 5 years has just been completely invalidated.
Right.
Yep. Okay. Want to see Beefeater. Could Freeman take Chris Ash to a casino in Gary, Indiana, and accidentally leave him there tonight? Pretty sure we'd win this weekend. Jim from here at the radio station. I don't know if you saw the video that Jim put out the other day, but he was saying, who's with me if we drive to Cincinnati and kidnap Al Golden? And then he's like, wait a minute. What if we kidnap Chris Ash and take him to Cincinnati, and then we also
a little
switcheroo? Switcheroo.
I'm okay with that.
That's right. And man, like, I realize Al Golden's an NFL defensive coordinator now, but with Joe Burrow out until probably December,
a lot of pressure on old Al Golden right there.
Seems like we're all just being wasted right now with Al Golden being in Cincinnati with that defense that he inherited. All right, take a time out. When we come back, more mailbag questions. Budweiser's Weekday Sportsbeat with IrishBreakdown.com. Continuing Budweiser's Weekday Sportsbeat with IrishBreakdown.com mailbag show. We're answering all listener questions today. This is probably the biggest mailbag we've ever had.
I know. People are mad, Sean. They're angry. They're upset.
A lot of good questions.
I know, right?
Really. Speaking of which, we've talked a lot about this subject today, but ND Noah asks, have both of you lost hope regarding Chris Ash? Is there even a world where he can turn this around if Freeman doesn't step in?
I am a very positive thinking person when it comes to sports, and I would like to say life, but there might get some arguments out there. I would say I have lost all faith. Yes, I think Marcus Freeman absolutely needs to step in. We know that he's a good defensive coordinator. We know that he understands his team. He needs to step in, period, end of discussion. And I'm going to be even more worried about this program if he doesn't step in soon, very, very soon. Not all is lost if he doesn't do it now, but like now seems like the time that it needs to happen. So you can't continue to play defense the way you've played it the past 2 weeks and expect success. Period.
Yeah. And, and again, like we started off the show with the soundbite from Marcus Freeman the other day talking about whose defense is it. And he said, well, we've got some new players. And yeah, you've got some new players. But part of the answer to his question is this is still our defense. The structure of the defense is still the same. Well, everyone who has seen, there are no true freshmen who have seen the field defensively this year. Everyone has been here for at least last year and this year. And in many cases, as we've talked about, you also have 3 starters from the secondary who are part of the college football playoff run, national championship game. You got Drake Bowen, you got Kingston Viliamuasa, you got Jaden Osbury, you got Jalen Sneed. All 4 of them, those linebackers, played significantly last year. Now, do you have defensive linemen who are thrust into different roles this year? Yes, specifically the defensive tackles. So really the only 2, I guess I should backtrack a little bit because you do have a couple of transfer guys, but not a lot. So even though he's saying the defense structurally is the same defense. He's saying you've got some new players. Yes, you have new players, but I think the argument is you have even more players who have been in that defense for at least 1 year, if not more, coming into this season. So if structurally the defense is the same, there's no excuse for them to be playing the way they're playing. The only different variable really, or the only one that really matters, is the guy whose philosophy is now driving the defense. And that is obviously the new defensive coordinator, Chris Ash. And again, your offense with a first-time starting quarterback has averaged 34 points against 2 ranked teams, yet you have lost both of those games because of the fact that your defense is giving up more than 34 points per game. Something has got to change. And look, if we hadn't seen 2014, 2015, 2016, the BVG years with our own eyes, maybe I'd feel a little bit differently about this. But we have been through that. We've been down this road before watching Notre Dame football, and everything that we've seen so far said it's an accelerated path. You can't go from an elite defense that played in the national championship game with many of the same players to being ranked in the hundreds in most of the defensive categories that you were ranked at the very minimum in the top 15 last year, and in most cases in the top 10.
Could not agree more. Changes need to be made, and I'm not saying fire a coach. I'm saying some responsibilities have to change, and then, if you feel like those changes were positive and all of that, then, Chris Ash finds a new job at the end of this year, and I'm not saying you fire him. I'm saying you find him a new job. That's what Notre Dame does. They find guys new jobs when they want them to just kind of quietly go away. And that's what needs to happen at this point. Like, there needs to be a change in philosophy. There needs to be a change, Yeah. And it doesn't even need to be play calling.
Marcus Freeman has shown, again, like when you look at his track record,
right?
He's acted quickly before in making so, like the Chancey Stuckey thing, even though he said one day that nothing was going to happen. And then the next day, Chancey Stuckey was gone. Like,
right.
he's recognized when he's needed to make a move, and he's made a move. But you've got to salvage the season now, and I just don't see whatever's going on that's going on through the first 2 games being able to salvage this whole thing. ND Saylor asks, Notre Dame now knows it has a quarterback who can make passes. It knows it has a defense that gives up a lot of points. Do you expect Notre Dame to now scheme to score a lot of points, and how will Notre Dame adjust the offense?
The offense isn't going to adjust. The only thing you're going to see from an adjustment standpoint is you're going to see CJ Carr get the leash will be longer each week as he learns more of the playbook and he gets more comfortable and, all of those things. That's the only difference you're going to see in the offense. You might see Marcus Freeman get a little more aggressive on 4th down or, something along those lines.
Do you think, though, that they, they try to, they know they have 2 really good running backs. I'm not saying complete ball control, but do you think that they want to extend drives as much as possible? Keep the ball away from the other team.
I see where you're coming from, but no, I don't think that, because that is the opposite of the quarterback that you have. And I don't think you want to take the fight out of CJ Carr. You know what I mean? Like he's born to, kind of like Brett Favre, right? He's born to sling it around and kind of put the ball into danger sometimes, but like make great plays and things of that nature. I don't think you want to neuter him. You know what I mean? Like, for lack of a better analogy, I think you want to still let CJ Carr be CJ Carr.
Scott makes a good point here in the YouTube chat. We'll score more points via long touchdowns against worse competition. And that's
true.
I don't think you're probably going to see as good of, the defenses you're going, because we've talked mostly about the offenses and what kind of threat that can be to Notre Dame's defense. I think you're probably not going to see 2 better defenses. I'm not saying that both of these defenses were lights out defenses, but probably not going to, we know from a talent standpoint and how they've stacked up, you're not going to see probably as good a defensive talent, as good a defense as what you've already seen the rest of the year.
You are going to see better offenses moving forward than you are defenses.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm not comparing them to A&M and Miami. I'm saying, like, be more worried about the offenses that you're about to face than you should be about the defenses you're about to face. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
There's, NC State can sling it around. USC obviously can sling it around. Boston College, well, not this past week, but the week before, they showed that they can score a lot of points. Like there's some offenses on this roster, and then Navy, for gosh sakes, like who's to say Chris Ass is going to screw that up too? Like that's a possibility. So, there's going to be better offenses moving forward than there are defenses moving forward.
I don't know about 77 from Angeli.
Okay.
Bobby O'Shea.
I hope there was more than 15% sarcasm on that post.
Yeah.
Like somebody put out, because Steve Angeli is currently leading the NCAA in passing yards right now. Okay. Somebody put that out in a tweet. And I was like, well, he's also giving up a top 10 amount of sacks, being sacked as well. Sacks given up. He's been sacked the 9th most time in college football. So, and that ain't all on the offensive line either. So,
right. Right.
There is that.
And he's also been able to play Colgate and UConn the last 2 weeks.
Like 800 of those
find me
yards.
Colgate on Notre Dame's schedule. So
800 of those yards came against those 2 opponents, by the way. So there's that.
Domer Grizz says, upon further review this week, Brian Driscoll and Vince confirmed this is a poorly coached team. Last year, they were very well coached. The only difference on the staff are McCullough left, but was replaced with arguably the other best running back coach in the country, and 2, Ash replaced Golden. So how can essentially one new coach single-handedly turn a well-coached team into a poorly coached team on both sides of the ball?
Easily, because you're being asked to coach a different scheme. It's completely different. And that's how you do it. I mean, right now, okay, for example, Jeremiah Love is way too quick downhill that he wasn't last year.
Yeah.
That's coaching. He needs to be coached up to be more patient, and his steps are different than they were last year. So that has to change, right? The offensive line is the same as it was last year from a coaching standpoint, so I'm not even going to go there. I would say the quarterback coaching is actually really good right now. I would say wide receiver coaching is good. So that's all a wash. I would say defensively, they are regressing from a coaching standpoint because they are being asked to coach things that the guys that they have in their room aren't good at.
Yeah.
So
I don't think that all those position coaches just became bad position coaches overnight, because in all three cases, and I'm talking about Mickens, I'm talking about Bulla, and I am talking about Washington. And I mean, you can throw Biaggi in there as well since he coached safeties last year. But again, we have evidence what those guys look like last year. The different variable is who's designing the approach, the structure.
Exactly.
Not the structure, but, the game plan, the philosophy.
And coaching also falls under what are they doing at practice? Coaching falls under the game plans and the adjustments made in game. Like those have all been not great so far this year on both sides of the ball, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But those haven't been great, so all of that is coaching, and they were really good at that last year, and they're not that good at it this year. So, maybe they're resting on their laurels a little bit.
T-Shoop 11, is Notre Dame the most talented 0-2 team in recent memory? Is there any other team close to that talent level who has started the year as rough as the Irish team? I mean,
I'm not a historian on college football, so I don't really. Yeah. Somebody said the chicken soup team was 0-2 to start the season.
No, that was almost 50 years ago.
Correct. I had just heard that in passing, so maybe that one. But look. The voters think that this is a pretty talented Notre Dame team too, because they have no wins and they're in the top 25. So, it is a talented team. They just got to get their stuff together.
Very. IB Irish, was Chris Ash just that bad at installing/teaching a system that the players still don't understand it, or the players never liked it to begin with and didn't get on board? Maybe both. No chance the current system works if the players are against it, don't trust it, and are not willing to run through a wall and go to war for the guy calling the shots.
There's a lot of speculation in there. The fact that they, because they don't like the coach, that they're not going to run the defense like that, I don't see that being a thing. You can not like your coach. You're only hurting yourself by not running.
You still want to play to win.
Yeah. So I don't think this is Lord of the Flies. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think there's a mutiny on board, that kind of a thing. I just think that it's either not being taught well, or as Marcus Freeman said, they're being asked to do things that they're not good at, so I think it's more that.
And I think it's more the latter. I think it's more the latter. They're being asked things that they're not good at.
Right.
And that's play to the strengths, because Mark, that's something that Freeman talked about, is figuring out how to play to the strengths, and it really shouldn't be that hard, considering again so many of these guys have been around and we saw how they played the last couple of years.
It makes me wonder whether he watched any film from last year, like coming in the door. You know what I mean? Like,
I know, right?
Hey, what did these guys do last year? Maybe I should check that out and see what they're good at.
Man, they did go to a national championship game while I was sitting on the beach,
Yeah.
Doing nothing.
16 games to check out.
Yeah. ND for life. If you could steal one player from any other college football team without any eligibility restrictions or NIL considerations to immediately improve Notre Dame's chances of winning a national champion this year, who would it be and why? Vincent from Duke is I think he's got the most sacks in the country right now. He's got 5 sacks in 3 games. So I would take that. I would take someone who has shown he can get to the quarterback, and go with that. So that would be at the top of my list.
Man, yeah, that's a good one. I mean, Notre Dame, it's not a talent issue. I don't really want to steal players. The talent's not the problem. I want to steal coaches, but players aren't really the issue for me personally. I appreciate the question. I love the question, actually. I don't know enough players around to be poaching players. So I think yours is a good one, Sean, because that is a major issue that Notre Dame has right now, is getting pressure on the quarterback.
Yeah.
Give me a 350, 60-pound defensive tackle. I would, that knows how to rush a passer. I'll take that too.
We'll take our last timeout, and then we'll be back Indy for Life has got a bunch of questions loaded up. He's got some good ones in here. So we'll do that when we return, and we will wrap up the show tonight with an all mailbag edition. All kinds of Notre Dame football questions on tonight's show. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Winding down Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com with Vince DeDario, Sean Stiers. It's been all mailbag Notre Dame football questions on today's show because we have just been slam-packed with some good questions tonight. We got a probably kind of go through a little bit rapid fire-ish, Vince, to finish these off. ND for life, biggest concern for Notre Dame heading into the Purdue game.
Defense? Is that too broad of an answer? I mean, it's definitely the defense. No doubt about it. It's definitely the defense, and it would be specifically the pass defense. I'm not worried about the run game. I'm worried about the pass game, and I'm worried about the slot receiver.
That Maccabee's playing all right. He's got over 200 yards on the ground right now, but they've got a few receivers. They can spread the ball out a little bit. Brown, their quarterback, threw 3 interceptions against USC last week. I think at least a couple of them came in the red zone as well. So they moved the ball against USC. Not like USC was known for its defense coming into the season, but it's just until the defense proves otherwise, the concern is always going to be the defense. That's just kind of where we've got to go with that. Another one from ND for life, putting on your AD hat for a moment. The single biggest strategic decision you'd make right now to ensure the long-term health and competitiveness of the football program in the ever-changing landscape of college athletics.
Just continue doing what you're doing with the facilities and the ability to offer NIL to the football program to use to get guys in the door. The door.
I think that they're doing a good job. They're doing very well with NIL, and they're all in on the revenue sharing. Because like schools don't have to go up to the max allotment on with the revenue share, but Pete Bavonqua has said they are. So I mean they're they've got donor investment. They're doing what they need to do. So I think it's really just keep down the line that you're going right now. Pete Bavonqua says we have to win a national championship. And I think as a Notre Dame alum, that's obviously very important to him, and it's going to remain a priority for him to win a national championship or championships here at Notre Dame. Does Notre Dame's underdog status at 24 create a more engaging viewing experience for college football fans, not just by providing the team to root for, but perhaps even more compellingly, a broader range of teams to root against, thus feeling more intense emotional investment in the season's outcome?
There's a lot going on there. I kind of stopped at does them being a 24-point underdog and blah, blah, blah.
I think he's saying the ranking, the number 24 ranking.
Oh, got you. Look, people are really enjoying Notre Dame being not good as far as record is concerned.
Always going to happen.
They're really enjoying that. So in that regard, yeah, I mean, having them at 24 is going to tick those people off because, Notre Dame has no wins and they shouldn't be ranked, and they're going to enjoy watching Notre Dame lose and all of those different things. And there's a bunch of Notre Dame fans that have completely checked out, Sean, which is disappointing. But I mean, I'm not
reel them back in. Start winning some games; they'll come back.
I'm not even going to say I understand it because I don't understand it. It's September 17th. Why are you quitting on your team? And you're not a real fan.
Appreciate everyone who watches and listens all the time. I've even seen some new handles in the YouTube chat, and in some of the Champions Lounge as well. Okay, we got a couple minutes here.
Okay,
Freeman for life. Which team's early record surprises you more? Notre Dame at 0-2 or Clemson? Clemson's 1-2. He says 1-3. They're 1-2 though. Which I mean, I was surprised more by Clemson because they lost first, but we cover Notre Dame more closely. So to me, it's definitely Notre Dame, and specifically because of how mightily the defense has struggled these first 2 games.
Yeah, it's definitely Notre Dame, although Clemson's not far behind at 1-2. I mean, they were supposed to have an all-world quarterback, and they're supposed to be, in the conversation for a national championship, Sean, and that is not the case for them right now.
He also says, after Steve Angeli's performance his first 3 games as starter at Syracuse, do you feel Notre Dame made the right decision to move on?
1,000% yes.
Yes, because, again, C.J. Carr has done everything that he's been asked to do and more. Like, Notre Dame would be in no better position with Steve Angeli.
They would be in worse position.
Carr. And again, C.J. Carr has done it against 2 teams that are right now ranked in the top 10. Steve Angeli had his worst game against Tennessee, which is what you would expect. Had his 2 best games against UConn and Colgate the last 2 weeks. It's not even the same ballpark.
Yeah, it's not even the same conversation. And he also asks, do we feel he still has the limitations you initially thought? Yes. That's why he's been sacked in the top 10 in college football.
Yeah, it still takes a lot of sacks.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure what this handle is, 20-something P. Does Notre Dame need to go to the portal more? Several teams have done that and gotten better.
No, it's not a player problem. This is a coach problem.
Right. And they go to the portal to address the needs that they need to address. Like as Marcus Freeman has said, like Notre Dame can't live in the portal. They're doing it the right way. They are recruiting and bringing in very talented players like CJ Carr, and they are augmenting it with guys from the transfer portal like a Malachi Fields as an example. That's been a great connection of both homegrown and transfer portal that have done very well for Notre Dame so far. I think that's going to be it.
I keep looking at the clock because
I know. I know. It is winding down right now. Okay, we'll have some more Marcus Freeman comments on tomorrow's show. He's got his noon Zoom tomorrow, so
oh boy,
I'll be in on that, see what he has to say, and we will have some of those comments on tomorrow's show. We'll also get into a little bit more whiteboard breakdown heading into Purdue this weekend. So that's coming up tomorrow. Vince, I will talk to you Friday, sir.
I'll be there.
All right. Good to see you. Thanks, everyone, for all the questions today in the Notre Dame football mailbag. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Budweiser's Weekday Sportsbeat with IrishBreakdown.com.